everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Enlightened Mike podcast. We are back with the regular crew after a brief hiatus with our friend Hamish from Push the Point. That was a really excellent interview. Go check that out if you have not already. It's on our YouTube channel, and which you're already at if you're watching this. I'm joined today by Jacob and Archer. How are you guys doing today?
Good. I'm having a chill one. How about yourself, Archer?
I'm doing really good. Start of a new school term. It's my last term before I graduate, so finish line is in sight. Yeah. But we'll see how much I stumble before we get there.
Hopefully, the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train.
Yeah, the final stretch can be the longest as well. Yeah. So here's to your last term, bud.
Yeah. And then you'll graduate and become you'll get job placement as a professional Flesh and Blood player, and we'll all be happy.
I have my sets on much better. I'm sorry.
Much bigger, better thing.
I know Hamilton made like 200,000 last year or something absurd like that.
Something
but like one person.
Very atypical, yeah.
Yeah. I think I said that recently. Like, I would love to be a professional Flesh and Blood player, but I don't think you can do that unless your name is Michael Hamilton or maybe Brody Spurlock, because he, like, every time I see his name, he's like top 8ing some nonsense. But
he's bashing everything.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna be a pro card player, it's gonna be poker.
Ooh, hell yeah!
Like, you still get to play cards for a living, but it's a bit better money in that.
Man, I kind of want to have a Team Galaxy bring poker night. I think that could actually be like a really fun. Not anything crazy, like we all chip in $5 or whatever and winner takes all, but like I think that could be a really good way to like work on our fundamentals of like playing to our outs and calculating risk. It will make us all really good Rhinar players.
Always bet on the Beast Within discard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I actually think poker is one of the most skill intensive games of all time, but that's another topic. So yeah, welcome everybody. Got a good show today. We're going to talk a little bit about some new rules that have been published, give our takes on that. Then we'll talk a little bit about the limited format. Archer has a really good story about that. And then we'll talk about the classic constructed meta and how we see that going forward into your next week's Armory and also Pro Tour Baltimore. So yeah, let's get going with the rules and policy update for tournaments. It's kind of our news piece here. It's been out for a little bit. It's been out since the end of March here by Joshua Scott, the rules and policy manager. But there's some good stuff in here. We're not going to go over every bullet point because that would make for a very boring podcast. But I do want to throw out just a couple of highlights. So first one being card pool is a new term, formerly known as the deck. They said card pool because you go to a tournament with an 80 card pool, and then you present your deck at the beginning of each constructed round or each game round or whatever. The sideboard is now called the inventory, and I guess that's a separate point. But just some changes to the naming vernacular there. What do you guys think about this overall?
I think it's kind of like it seems like it's setting up. First of all, they're just updating terms, and they've already started referring to some of these things as these new terms, but just making it official. It does feel like they are really leaning into the like role play RPG aspect of this game.
Sure.
And that just makes me hopeful that the multiplayer format is good.
Ultimate Fit Fight.
No, the PvE.
PvE. Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. The card pool kind of leans into that. I also just like that idea a lot more because the 80 card pool. I think it's when we're talking about newer players to the game and like introducing these concepts. If you're not from TCGs, it actually is easier to grasp this idea of like you have 80 cards. That's your card pool. That includes any cards you want to play and like all of your armor and all of that stuff. And then as you go into the game, each round you put together a deck from your card pool. That one makes a lot of sense. And then the inventory. Yeah, like Archer said, we already have cards kind of referencing the inventory now with Concealed Blade. and I think Taylor did it even before then. That promo for the cosplayers. So it just makes sense. And it's also like Flesh and Blood just moving into having its own language and just defining itself more and more. So
Further defining itself away from games like like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. Okay, yeah, I think it's a positive change, even if just like I guess it's not necessarily the case because it's the same for Constructed too, but like it just like vibes with me a little bit more in something like Blitz, where you can have like your 40 card deck and then I think it's 11 equipment. So you can just say like you can have 40 card deck and 11 items in your inventory or something. I don't know. And it just sounds better and like kind of fits into the theme of the game. I think that was a really good call out, Archer, about the just kind of like the role playing aspect. So yeah, love that. A couple of what I view as, I don't know if quality of life is the right term, but I think they made a couple of changes that will lead them to just better games of Flesh and Blood. So there's shortcuts, out of order play, and reversing actions. The long and the short of this is shortcuts are a little bit more clear as long as they're agreed upon by both players. So like the example they gave is if you're attacking your opponents and they say, sure, take 3 damage, you can say, oh, actually, I have a reaction or something. So there's no confusion about, oh, well, I already took 3 or something. And then out of order play too, like, for example, somebody says, I'm going to pitch this card. And then they like think about what card they're going to play when technically you play and then pitch, as long as it's understood by all parties again. And then reversing actions is another one as well, where you are allowed to reverse actions as long as no new information was gained before you reverse it. So like if you play a card and they like block with something, you say, oh, actually, I'm going to do this. You can't do that. But if you play a card and you're like, oh, actually, I'm going to do this, nothing has changed and no information has been gained, you're basically allowed to do that. And I'm sure there's caveats to that. But what do you guys think about this new update to these gameplay actions?
It's fine. It's like these are all things that like I don't know. I don't call a judge for these types of things before, so like they're not going to affect me. I'm a pretty laid back player. There's only one time that I've tried to like shark someone in a tournament, and that was at a pro tour. And I still think I should have gotten my way, but I didn't. But for the most part, like I'm like,
and I just want to be clear, you weren't trying to like maliciously shark them. I think you were like, even if you see it as like you were trying to, you may have felt like it, but you were following the rules and like you were at a pro tour, so I think that's acceptable. But anyway, continue with your story.
Yeah, it's just these are all things that like I am totally okay with people reversing game actions. Like I'll let people like redo a whole turn. I'm like, it doesn't. I don't care. I don't take pride in winning games where like my opponent regrets not doing something. So like if they're, I don't know, I'm getting off on a tangent, but like the point of this stuff is they just made it into the rules allowing for some of these things that I think most players already.
Yeah.
They just codified sportsmanship essentially. If you're not an asshole, a lot of these things we kind of just like let slide. Like I might tell a new player like, hey, technically you should play the thing you want to play and then pitch the card. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna do it every single time they do it because it's not really affecting the game. I'm totally okay with things like that. And I actually love that they codified reversing an action just because people can get very sharky with that one specifically. And it's just like, obviously, if you go to Sonata and you don't like your reveal, that I don't want you to reverse
can I take
an
this
action
back?
like that. Right, something like that. But if it's like, you want to maybe change your attack or like a pitch card is what I had talked about before, where like if it's just another blue pitch card, and nothing has changed. I have not put blocks out. I have not indicated any kind of response. And there's like, there's just those seconds where you do an action and then you're like, oh wait, because you just sat in the tank for 6 minutes thinking of what you're gonna do, and you're like, okay, this blue is the one I want to pitch, and then you go to do it and you just mess up, you flub it.
Yeah, and
just
I think
fix it real quick.
I think too that like Sonata is a really good example of something that even at like an armory level, I don't know that I would be comfortable like like, oh, play Sonata, reveal 3 is like, oh, actually I wanted to pitch this thing. It's like, oh, like you've gained information, and whether or not you meant to like like use that information to like change your pitch, like it's still like doesn't sit right with me. So I think that they clarified it really well, and I think it will just lead to better gameplay experiences overall. So
I wonder if this applies to like missed triggers. So like what for the Sonata example, if you're Briar and it's your second non-attack, or even a Viscerai, if you play it and then reveal and you haven't made the embodiment of lightning, or in Viscerai's case, triggered Viscerai mid rune chant before you reveal the cards, it's considered
interesting.
trigger. And so I wonder if it's like they're like, oh wait, I'm gonna reverse this game action.
I don't. Triggers are different. Like missed triggers aren't really talked about in here, and I think that's on purpose because that is a gameplay mistake. Like I feel like obviously I don't know with Briar and things like that, but like your rune chant math. Have played a game where I had a Viscerai try to ask me how many rune chants he was supposed to make, and I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
And I knew damn well how many rune chants he was supposed to be making. But it's like, dude, I'm not gonna do the math for you. If you're playing your Revel and you don't know how many rune chants you're supposed to be making off of it with your Mordred, I'm not gonna tell you it's 7. But in game, and I'm looking at you, and you're like, and I'm like, dude, I don't know, figure it out. And he's like, it's 6, and I was like, all right, cool, I'll take 6. Like,
and I mean, and part of that too is like, part of that is just like mastering your hero. Like in my opinion, like remembering triggers is just part of getting practice and repetition and mastery of your hero. Where it's like if somebody's like, oh, I meant to do this thing last turn and like I missed the trigger, it's like, I mean, like, sorry, like that sucks, but like, no. So
that being said, I'm not hard on embodiment of earth triggers. Like I think
sure.
if me and my opponent both know that you dealt damage that turn with an attack, like you have the embodiment of earth. I'm not like a stickler who's like, oh, we get all the way to the end phase and it's like you didn't make that embodiment. That's just rude.
Sure.
I feel like it's like I know I took damage.
Yeah.
So
and again, this is like I myself keep referencing armories and stuff, but like this is for like tournament policy. So I feel like if you're at that level, like especially like if you're on like day 2 of a calling or something, like I'm not letting that person have the embodiment if they did anything else, right? But that's different. So
right, because I think it even says on Briar it works like Katsu. It's the first time you deal damage, it triggers. And so if you miss that trigger there, technically you're not supposed to be getting the embodiment.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think the rule is like your opponent gets to like decide like, do you want your opponent to put that trigger on the stack? Usually I'm saying no. But so moving on to a couple other.
I have one more thing that was in that.
Archer, I'm sorry. I already gave you additional information, so you cannot reverse the game action. No. What's up?
So triple sleeving is now legal.
Oh yeah, no. I was gonna go over that.
There.
Yeah, calm down.
I'm sorry, I thought you were moving
Quit
on to
disrupting the game state, Archer. Okay. So yeah, the a couple other things in the article that we, you guys shout out if there's something like triple sleeving, for example, that you guys want to talk about. So game information. I don't want to go through all of these unless there's something that's interesting to you guys. But there's basically 5 types of information. There's visible, public, assisted, historical, and private. They said we slimmed it down because it was wordy and ambiguous. So good on them. Markers as well. They write a little bit about things that temporarily note the information about the game. And Jacob, I think earlier pointed out rightly, like it's basically for stuff like metal fab tokens. As long as it's clear and communicative to your opponent, it's fine. Like they give some examples about using a die to indicate the power of an attack or arcane damage, or using a small item with go again written on it, etc., etc. All flesh and blood, or all fab metal tokens, right? And then the last thing is game layout as well. One of the last things is game layout, where basically they said the pitch zone, banish zone, graveyard are all where they are for a reason. Please do that. And then finally, there's a few other notable changes about deck list registration, sleeving, card legality, and IP infringing material. Any of those? Are any of those jumping out to you guys, or anything you want to comment on specifically?
I just want to comment on game layout. I've played a lot of TCGs, and I'm used to like changing a layout. I think layouts in games are important. I have a huge pet peeve against players that play games and are like, well, I like to do this, and it's like a complete reorganizing of what the game is, and it's like you're not playing this game then.
Yeah.
Like, it just aggravates me. The only one I accept in this game is like I don't care how your armor's necessarily set up.
Sure.
If it's like in a 4x4 like that's whatever. But other than that, like the zones all have meaning. Your pitch should be where your pitch is. I need to know where your graveyard is clearly defined. And if I've been playing hours of this game at a big tournament and I know that I just look above your deck and that's where a graveyard is, and then you're gonna tell me, oh no, that's where I put my banish zone. It's like, okay, well, that's just confusing to me, dude. For hours, I've been looking at people's graveyard in that exact spot. um, but they do talk about how you're allowed to separate blood debt, which I think is important. I think Archer, honestly, when I first got into the game and you were on chain, you did a really good job with this. And you just denoted like, hey, I just put these here because for me, I need to know what cards I can play, but it lets me know how much damage I'm going to take. And things like that.
It's
Or you
helpful
can
to the other
separate your
player
Phoenix
too,
Flame
right?
out.
Like,
Yeah.
I can see a world where like, and like if they don't want to separate their blood deck cards, that's on them or whatever. But like, I think it's helpful for the player and also the person who has to like play around what their opponent can do, right? So.
And at the end of the day, too, this is a timed game in a lot of instances. Most of the games that you're going to play are timed. Anything that makes information easier to understand and quicker to understand is beneficial to both players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you would play chain without separating your playable blood debt.
Right.
Like I don't know how you could go through like that just seems ridiculous to me, but it's just legal now, right? Which I didn't know it wasn't legal.
Yeah.
But yeah. You can also like rearrange your graveyard. Like they said the Phoenix Flames outside the graveyard is groovy. They did things like you can separate your reds in your graveyard so you know how many burn them all triggers you can have left.
Oh, that's cool.
Things like that,
Oh,
like
that's nice.
just making it all legal is really, really nice because now you can do it because it's always weird that you can't rearrange your graveyard. I think it's weird. Like I just put like the cards I care about. Like I'm like when I'm going through it, I want to put them at the top, but that's technically not allowed. Yeah, it's just cool that this type of stuff is kosher.
Yeah, and did they specify about like so note that you cannot have more than one separate pile per graveyard and banish zone, and you cannot sort cards in your graveyard or banish zone by default, which I think is nice. I'm glad they clarified that because like people can't just like sort like the pitch in their graveyard or something. Like I think that would just lead to like wasted time and like weirdness. So they do a good job in this article of like just improving everybody's gameplay experience and like making sure that there's clarity on like the updates to the rules, which I really like.
It's the irony of this is that all of these rules really just sound like, hey, like these are all things that we were all doing as players anyways, and they just codified it in a way where they're like, hey, don't be an asshole, which you guys aren't already being assholes, but if there's anyone in your community who wants to be, the rules actively tell them they're wrong now. And that is in stark contrast to most card games I've played, where they go the opposite direction and they're like, everything's like by the book, and if people aren't by this book, then you can call them by the judge, and like that's an okay thing to do. And then sometimes rules are right and thing, but don't be mean. It's like, okay, well, you built the entire rules structure so that I can be a rules lawyer, essentially.
Yeah.
And this game's gone the opposite direction where they're like, nah, everything's a legal gray area. Like if you and your opponent are having conversations about this stuff, it's actually not a problem. And it makes the judge's life a lot easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, big shouts out to LSS for all of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this just goes along with the thing that James White is always saying. At least when I've heard him go up in front of like a calling or Worlds or whatever, he says, "Let's play great games of Flesh and Blood." Like he always ends his speeches with that, and I think that's really what he wants, is to make sure that no matter what, people are having great gameplay experiences, and this just shows me that they are, as a studio, sticking to that mantra. We did miss one thing though, Archer, that you were very excited about: triple sleeving.
Yeah. All these sickos can now legally triple sleeve their decks. All these girthy boys get to roll up with their, nearly 1 foot tall deck. And then any sneeze will make it all topple.
Oh, man.
I just think people triple sleeve their deck are funny. A lot of Guardian players typically do it.
I was like, are you talking about anyone in specific, or is this just like a vague? This is like a broad.
I've only seen Golden players triple sleeve their deck, and our homie Natan does it.
Although I think his deck is like completely foiled out and like cold foiled as much as possible, if I remember correctly. So
and his sleeves are pretty.
He does have nice sleeves.
Yeah, I think that's why he does it. It's actually the outer sleeve is to protect the art sleeve. And it's very funny to me.
Yeah.
But it's
although and like to be fair, the outer sleeves are cheaper than the dragon shields. So
yeah,
who's really the clown?
But it is a tome of cards. It is
a
huge, bit more dense to know how many cards are in your deck mid game though, which is very interesting.
You just ask your opponent to count their deck every single turn.
How many cards did you pitch? I don't want to do math. Go ahead and count it up again.
Why don't you just give us a holistic count here?
That's real. You can. That's legal. Totally do that.
I'm pretty sure that if you ask your opponent to count your deck every turn, you'd probably get a judge called on you. Man, do you guys remember when all those nerds that played Chain would count their deck every turn? It's like, ooh, I'm thinking about pitching. Like, is this going to get banished? Although Archer only had to do it a couple times a game, which I always respected.
When there's times where like I'll do it and I'll forget my count and I'll have to do it again, and then I'll forget my count and I'll have to do it again, and then it's like because I'm like, I'm in a tournament situation. I'm like my heart's pounding, right? Like the game. If I don't do this right, like I just lose the game.
Yeah. And that's fair. And I think as long as you're not like, I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like you were always pretty quick about it, so I never had a problem with it. But like if somebody was just like, let me just mosey on through my cards here and see how many I've got in this here pile, like I'd be a little annoyed. But
a chain game's never going to time.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So like,
it's always going to fatigue though. Almost.
Yeah, but it's not going to time.
Yeah.
That's the new Shadow Runeblade is slow and slow. That makes sense with Blood Dead.
Oh man, it's all just Shadow Runeblade defense reactions. It's all just.
I'm ready for Dusk Till Dawn. Let's go.
Oh man. Okay, we're getting off topic. If we're talking about Dusk Till Dawn, we're just speculating right now. Unless they're reprinting Luminaris confirmed, I don't want to hear about it.
Hey, if they do anything close to Luminaris. No, you don't. No.
How am I going to get my stuff going again?
You can keep Spectra. You can keep the bullshit auras. Just don't give them all a go again. That was ridiculous. And the tax go again. It's ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah, I'd like to think that I'm a really skilled player, but I might have just been playing Prism for a long time. I don't know. Okay, so that was the rules and policy update. I don't know if there's any other news items you guys want to talk about, but I want to talk about Outsiders Draft, and maybe more specifically, Archer. How was it drafting a God box with a legendary in every pack?
Oh my gosh! So it was surreal. Surreal is the best word to describe the experience that a group of locals and I enjoyed on release weekend. When the first God box got opened, or the God case got opened, which was actually at a local store of ours at Discs and Dice in Troutdale, and we were all talking. We're like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy! Can you imagine drafting a box of this?" And I was, for one, being like, "Can you imagine that draft experience?" Like, it's just going to be so weird and trippy. And I was like talking about it like it would never happen. And then the next fucking day, I go to a draft party at Nathan's, who is a local of ours. He does the Savage Land News YouTube channel.
Ooh, good shout out to him. Go check that out. It's actually a really sweet channel, and he did this really cool video about AI meta predictions, which I thought was super cool, and he gave his own little 2 cents. Anyway, sorry. Continue with your story.
His meta prediction and meta analysis videos are like, I think some of the best content that's in the space right now.
Very good content, yes.
And we're gonna be collaborating with his channel. He's already invited me to do a limited thing with him.
Hell yeah.
And we'll once we eventually get around to doing some gameplay stuff, which we talk about, but we'll get around to it.
There's
I'm sure
logistics. There's logistics that happen. So yeah.
We'll get him involved because he's a local of ours. He's a buddy. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Draft party at his place. A bunch of local players. A few members from our team went over. We're all really good friends. Davis, who is a Dory player, also an awesome person.
Cool dude.
Yeah. I am going to forever be indebted to him because he bought my gold foil Courage of Bladehold from me. Which, let me tell you, selling gold foils, not that easy. There's not a huge market for them, especially when it's the most expensive one. And so he's an awesome dude. He brought a case, and then he's like, hey, I got this one loose box from Discs and Dice. Let's draft this first. And I'm all like, before we go, I'm like, guys, like, what if this is a God box? Like, what happens? So we pass out the packs, we all open, and the first person pulls legendary, and then pulls legendary, and the next person, and then it was 3 people at the table. I hadn't even got through my cards because I don't go straight to the legendary slot. Like I'm a competitive limited player, so I'm like,
you're like sifting through the red line commons. Like, what's a power card here?
And so and then I open legendary, and then it was like at least half of the people in the pod had pulled a legendary. I think it was more. And we're just like all freaking out, right? Like, I think we started recording after that. We're like, what's going on right now? The rainbow foils, so you can play them in your draft. It was every other pack. And throughout the draft, it was like every 2 packs had a legendary in it. There was one Fable. Insane experience. Insane. And because I'm fucking different and like, a top-rated limited player, whatever.
NBD.
I was passing those legendaries because I wanted to make a point. And long story short, I made a point. I ended up picking up a Vambrace of Determination like late in the past me. And honestly, I had a lot of Widowmakers played against me, and that thing came in clutch.
Ooh, that is clutch. Blocking for the 0 over and over again. Yeah, I did that recently in a game.
That's pretty cool.
Like
so the point of it, I didn't draft many legendaries. I had everyone had full equipment suites. The legendaries in this set are like not very good. Flick Knives is the only one that I think like really makes an impact on limited. I think that draft I drafted Arachne. I either went 2-1 or 3-0. I can't remember. We played 2 drafts that night, and I only lost 1 game to Ryan's Benji. The draft experience was insane, and I don't think any of us who participated in it will ever forget that experience. And I don't know if anyone's ever going to draft a God box from this set again, because there's not that many of them. We already got confirmation from LSS. And like a lot of them are just going to be open for just opening boxes. And so I get to have that.
What you're saying is we need to draft every box we open from here on out, just in case it's a God box and we miss out on that draft experience.
Yes. I'm already.
I'm so down.
Every box that I have.
Yeah. I like have. We have sets of the cards we want to play other than Majestic, so like I'm totally down to keep buying. This set's amazing. I know that's like been said. It's kind of like a meme at this point, but I've gotten 1 draft in. I did horribly, and I still thought it was like so fun because even after the draft, I was just thinking about all the minutia of decisions that I made and where I could have changed it to improve my gameplay. And that's the itch of any game, is if you can think about it even after you lost. That's how you know it's a good game. And this set is deep with that. So point being, we need to organize a draft soon.
So I just looked it up because Archer was like, I'm a top-rated limited player. He is actually 29th in the U.S. right now. So, fuck. He is indeed a He is a top-rated limited player. 72nd in the world, which is pretty good. Yeah, just riding off that 24th PT, baby.
In RTN season, I did really like the only limited events I've done really, really well in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, shit, man. Like there have been times where you'll just like say something like about limited, and I'm like, fuck, like, and it's like you understand them very quickly. Or like I showed you my pool on that like pre-release, and you're like, oh, you should have done like this, and this would have been a fine deck. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You looked at your deck and I was like, oh, this is a Arachne deck. What are you doing playing Missouri? Or
Oh no, it was the other way around. It was I was playing Arachne because I was like, oh yeah, go again's good. I also like didn't actually read a third of my cards, I'd say. And anyway, off topic. But yeah, this set is really really good, and like I think to the God box, like they said like the other like boxes, like there's not going to be any like bad boxes or any bad cases like because of this. There just happen to be like 1% of cases that are like God cases. And it's cool. It's cool that you guys got to like draft one. And then I think like I don't know if you mentioned that Davis like actually gave one of the like the money cards to like each one of the players at the draft, which I think is just like, you know, you mentioned he's like a cool dude, and this just like confirms it. Like he's just a swell guy, and I love that you guys had that experience.
Yeah, he's amazing. I'm just so grateful that we have such an awesome local community here. It's really grown, and there's a lot of people who are like really, they're like that mid-level player where they're like they know the game, they've been playing for a while, and they're like good. And they don't want to like grind or whatever, but like they're really really solid players. And so like it's not like I go to an armories and it's a cakewalk. Like I stress out and I have to like, I mean, I win a fair amount, but that's not because it's just like, I don't know. I love our community, and Davis is part of that community. And yeah, he let us draft the pool of legendaries after he took what he still needed for his set. He just let us draft the remaining in terms of our finishing order. So I think I finished first or second. So cool. Yeah. So
what'd you take?
I took Flick Knives.
Nice. Flick Knives is such a sweet card. Oh my god.
And then I bought a bunch of bulk from him and the legendary quiver for like $20.
Oh, nice.
From him. Because I haven't opened any products besides limited.
Yeah.
Do you want to transition into talking about our thoughts on
limited? Our thoughts about the limited format in general. I personally haven't gotten a lot of opportunity to do a draft. I know that Jacob's done one or two, and I know that Archer's done, you know, one plus a God draft or however many you guys have done. What are your guys' initial thoughts on the draft format? A, is it good? B, what kind of cards are standouts to you, and do you think that we're going to see kind of some like meta shifting and some churn like we did in Uprising, where, you know, first like, oh, Fi's insane, oh, Icelander's insane, oh, Dromai's insane. Like that's what I liked about Uprising. I know that wasn't a popular set and it wasn't super fun to draft because it was kind of on rails. So what do you guys think about Outsiders?
You want to take it first?
Yeah, I think the set's like really really strong as far as the decision making and the ability to stay open. So it leads to these really interesting decisions where all the way into pack 2, you can actually kind of be open on what class you're going to be in, not just what hero. And it was funny. I cheekily asked in my draft after the finishing of pack 1. I asked the table. I said, "Who here is no bullshit still open on class?" And it was me and 2 other people. And I was like, "That's really cool." I was like, "That's like very interesting." And you know, one person said it like unsure. They were like, "I don't know where I'm going," and the other person was like very confident. Had felt really good about how open their pool was. And so just the fact that it's that, and I did really poorly in the last draft that I did. And it's crazy to think that the one thing that I thought that I did wrong is I just played the wrong hero. I think that just that decision alone is very intriguing to be like, oh, what if I just played the same pool? And this really only works for Assassin, I think. I think with the ninjas and rangers, I think they are asking for different pools. But with the assassins, they kind of can lean in similar directions. Like Natan was in my same pool, and he had drafted a very similar deck. It was a lot of stealth attacks, decent amount of blues, not a lot of those switcheroos, and he went with Azuri, and he had a lot of success with it because he just had a deck that blocked really well and was still able to have valuable on hits. Um, so I'm really interested. I don't think that this is to your point, Tim. I don't think this is going to be like heavily met. Like it's going to have a meta. Every format has a meta, but I don't think it's going to be as shifty because with the last set and sets before it, we have force this, and then oh, that's being forced. Kind of move to this hero as a counter to that.
Yeah.
Whereas this is actually asking for player skill. I think the only meta that's going to develop over this is your skill with the set and how you can maneuver through your draft choices. What do you think, Archer?
Yeah, to add to your point about being able to stay open, the generics are good in this set, and
Very
that's
good.
what leans it. The multi-class cards are pretty good as well. But yeah, the generics being strong, and you can like totally rightfully pick like 5 generics, uh, your first 5 picks, and that be totally right. I'm thinking like come to fight. I'm thinking like destructive deliberation.
Yeah.
There's feisty locals. Come to fight. Really, I think people underestimate how good that is. Especially if we're predicting assassins to be a little bit overdrafted. Come to fight is insane.
Mhm.
Um, it yeah, it's fun. The I still don't understand how the signals are gonna work, and like that
Mm.
kind of like meta is gonna kind of like balance out. I
Yeah.
think it's also depending on who's in your pod and like the intentionality behind sending signals and reading signals. Like if you're playing with like at a casual armory, like you might not
Yeah.
get it, but like
Well,
a
and
pro
I
level,
mean, I don't know though, because like Uprising was very clear. Like we knew the like kind of the breakdown of how many rares were in there, how many of like each ice and generic and like draconic ninja illusionist card, and so you could take any card out of the pack and pass it to your opponent. And if your opponent was like savvy and could quickly assess that, they'd be like, "Oh, my opponent's on illusionist or my opponent's on wizard or whatever." Um, I am wondering if that is not going to be in this set because there is not only a variance in which class cards appear and which like generics and stuff, but there's also a variance in how many rares appear in a pack. There could be either one or I think up to three, or could there be four in like the foil slot? I'm not sure.
maybe the foil, but
Yeah,
I know up to 3 non-foil rares
yeah.
is possible.
So like you could see a pack with one rare and have no idea, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was getting at when I was saying signals are going to be hard to figure out because of that distribution.
Mhm.
Um, I need to get more reps in it. The only competitive draft event will be like a local RTN that I go to, so like not really sure
Mhm.
how like aggressively I'm going to be grinding draft. Probably just more for fun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it's really interesting. I generally play more aggressive decks in CC, but I have no interest in playing Ninja in draft.
Yeah.
I like the way, and then I love playing assassins in limited so far. But like I don't have any interest in playing them in CC. It's just funny how that like works, and that's like maybe a sign of like good format division. When you have like those preferences change.
I I
Um,
think that's cool. I mean, it's just like we were talking about. We all play, like Rhinar and Blitz, and I know I played Rhinar for CC last season, but really, it's not like a huge pet deck of mine.
Mhm.
It's just super fun, and it's cool that you can play different heroes in different formats and kind of like try 'em on because they work completely different. Because I totally agree. I might end up on Azuri for this next season, but that's not something that I expected going into like a CC season. I didn't think I was going to be like, oh, Assassin's really fun, but it is, and I learned that through the limited play,
Yeah.
like getting to play it in sealed and be like, holy shit, this deck and this hero is actually really fun. Um, Yeah, this game's really cool for that, and I like that the formats, yeah, just allow for, like, different player expression. Like you said, you're normally an aggro player, but you kinda get to slow down and be more mid-rangey in these other formats because that's what the format's asking you to do as a player, really. Whereas I could think Uprising was, if you liked aggro, you could force Ninja and genuinely have a good time and not, it was
Yeah,
totally a fine game plan. Um, but yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I need more reps in it, but it is for fun mostly. It is a lot of fun to draft this set. Um, and if it's any marker of like what LSS is able to do going forward, it's pretty exciting. I think that
Yeah.
they've definitely taken all the notes that the community's had, and they've
yeah,
been kind of cheeky in a lot of their responses. Like, no, all the other limited formats are like really good. People just, I understand why they're negative, and it's like, okay, but then why is this set so much better then? Why is this set like a crazy amount better? Where I'm getting off of work and thinking about buying boxes just to like goat you fuckers into playing draft with me. Where I go, oh, I already
hey,
have the
if you have the
box.
box, I'll show up for a fucking weeknight draft. Come on.
Dude, we've already learned this. Scheduling drafts is a nightmare.
It is kind of a nightmare. It is a lot
Yeah.
of like, coordinating 8 adults together to get into the
Yeah.
same room is kind of crazy.
I mean,
We need to
can we
we need to make some
convince?
teenager friends that are good at draft. Then
I feel
they
We
like
can
we
have
just
some
just
ask
already.
one of our armories to do drafts more often.
if you're just like, look, I got a box. I wonder
I
if
mean, the players can ask. The players
yeah,
can
yeah.
ask. It's whatever your community wants. I don't think, and in some cases, they're selling more packs, so I don't think they're like too upset by it. It's like, hey,
Eh,
So who
yeah.
Maybe
knows?
requires a little bit more hands-on from them
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
Mm,
side.
That's true.
But I mean that's a good point. I mean we have one store that alternates them. um, I'd be down for more drafts.
Yeah. Which I think that's a good model of just like alternating draft and CC and stuff. I think that's
one
fine.
draft a month is totally chill.
Yeah. Um, cool. Well, speaking of CC, let's actually for the last portion of this pod kind of dive into the classic constructed meta. I know that you guys have been grinding, your decks in armories and playing lots of Talishar. So first of all, we know that Ranger is definitely at a high point right now.
Yeah.
Um, how have you guys been finding this classic constructed format in light of Rangers being so good? And how have you been approaching that?
So I was texting the chat the other night. I think I said something that really encapsulates how this meta feels to me, and this statement's covered in a layer of salt, but this is going to be one of the most oppressive metas. I was telling like if you're a new player to this game, this shit's about to be
Yeah,
awful for you. Because the meta is about to be Rangers and Ice, and so you're gonna have Azalea just stacking on hits on you, and then on the other side of the coin, you're gonna have heroes that are like basically the top deck heroes, in my opinion, are going to be heroes that are saying, "Hey, you don't get to play this game." And I'm not mad at it at all. I'm excited to try to figure out the puzzle of whether or not I want to be the oppressive player or try to be the person who cracks through.
hmm
Personally, I love cracking through a slow deck as it just when you have built this thing to shut people down and they're like, "Oh, no, that's cool. Yeah, I'll take this damage," and then here's this huge return that you weren't expecting. Um,
sure.
I like doing that as a player, so I'm super excited. But I mean, I did have a night last night at testing Katsu that just felt it just felt bad. It felt real bad.
Yeah,
I
I
ran
feel bad for
into
Katsu because like if Katsu he got a huge bump in power, and if the other heroes had gotten the same amount of power bump, like I feel like
mm,
Katsu would be decent. The other heroes did not get the same amount of power bump; they got much more. Um,
yeah, and I think that's fair. I mean, Ninja had its time in the sun not too long ago. I don't think like Ninja players are like, oh, we didn't get to play a
yeah,
meta deck. We just
yeah,
got
yeah, yeah,
off of being a meta deck. I just think frailty's huge in the Ninja.
Yeah.
Frailty
So
is so severe,
yeah.
and since we have two classes playing it, it really changes up your game plan a lot. And attacking Arsenal is huge against ninjas because ninjas really do want to set up those big 5 card hands. And if you're constantly presenting this oppression or like jamming my arsenal with things I don't want or need, it actually can be a pain in the ass.
so this was like Tim was saying like Ninja didn't get the same power level, but like Bonds of Ancestry is like nearly the same rate as Codex of Frailty.
It's so good.
If you're evaluating Codex of Frailty as like nearly 8, which I think a lot of people are doing, I know it can be a little bit more. I know I've definitely gotten a Frailty, and it's like, oh, I've been playing Lexi lately, so like a Frailty against me sometimes is like 4 damage saved, which sucks. But yeah, Bonds of Ancestry is like insane. It's very above rate, but it's kind of crazy how that's like not quite enough.
It's more conditional. That's why. Like Codex's peak condition is no cards in hand, but even Codex with 1 card, 2 cards in hand, not awful. Like you can find these really good lines. Whereas Bonds is, I mean, that's not true. I mean, I on Katsu last night, descending is like gas. Like I might even think about running more descendings just so you can turn on that Bonds almost all of the time. Um,
I ran.
but yeah, I think the fact that the card's damn near unplayable without a Gust Wave, because that's the problem. Is like the floor for that card is it blocks for 3. You're almost never gonna want to pitch to play Bonds because it doesn't have the effect, and it's just like a 2 for 4. It like becomes this like very bad card, and that's just not true for Codex. Like Codex is just playable in more situations. I do agree that they're the same value though. Like your really big Bonds turns are how you win with Ninja now, and it is what gave the deck gas. It's why I was testing it for sure.
It's
The
just got a
Bonds
lot
now,
higher of a floor, right? Like you got to like,
yeah,
or like a lot lower of a floor, I suppose. It's like
like
it's harder to make the card amazing to reach
yeah.
that ceiling.
Well, I don't know if it's hard to make it like to. Yeah. I guess that is what I'm saying. Is that it is harder for you to get the full value out of Bonds than it is for you to get it out of Codex. Because like since Codex gives your opponent a token as well, which can be relevant from 1 to 3 damage. I think people have really exaggerated, like, oh,
Hmm.
frailty's worth 3 all the time. It's like it's not worth 3 every time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's worth 1 into your opponent,
Usually,
and you just get an arsenal that's where the real value can come from. I feel like after Codex of Frailty's time in the sun, people are really going to realize how nasty Codex of
Yeah.
Inertia is. I got hit with the Codex of Inertia last night, and it's like, oh, you've done this later in turn, so I've already blocked. Now you've top decked a card into my arsenal, forced me to discard, and the card in my arsenal now is
Yeah.
garbage, and
Yep.
I have an inertia. So
Well,
what's gonna
you don't have
happen
to
is
put a card in your arsenal, right? Or do you?
yeah,
It's a must. Oh yeah.
Codex of Inertia is put the top deck of your card
Yeah.
into your arsenal if it's empty.
Yeah.
So you have to, and then you have to discard. Um, why it's nastier is because it's unlike frailty, unlike frailty, you don't get to pick. You don't get to kind of like work around and be like, okay, well, I'll
yeah.
grab the Ravenous Ravel or I'll grab the E Strike and try to have a good turn here. I got slotted in a Surging Strike into my arsenal, and I had a red in hand, and I was like, cool. I guess I block with this card,
Yep.
and then I lose my arsenal, and I've already lost a card of value from the discard. It was nasty. And I was like, oh, this card's going to be equally frustrating, especially if they're running like 2 and 2, I think is a deadly. It's just so much just hand disruption. Um, it's really cool. I think it's awesome for Rangers and Assassin. I am not complained by that at all.
Yeah, I've been focusing on Lexi for this CC format. I was like a little bit unsure about making that jump. I've always wanted to learn Lexi, and I just waited until there's hella power cards to finally jump on the deck. But I was
Are you on Fuseless?
Yeah, I'm on
Yeah.
Fuseless. And I can talk about like why that list is amazing and why I love it so much. But yeah, Codex of Inertia way overperforms in Lexi specifically because in Lexi, all your cards are playable from art. All the cards you can get from the top of the deck are playable. Like it sucks to get blue arrows, but you just have to like set yourself. Like I'm learning the deck right now, so I'm learning how to play them and like not not having to use my Snapdragon Scalers to get a double arrow arsenal like fixed. I really think Lexi's harder to play than Azalea. Azalea is going to be really popular early because she kind of just windmill slams things, and there's like, sure, you opt a little bit and you have to make decisions there, but like it's not a super complicated deck, and I don't think a lot of people would disagree. Lexi, on the other hand, really complicated. There's a
I think
lot of
there's definitely a complexity disparity. I think.
Yeah, and so I've been really enjoying learning Lexi, and like I still notice spots where I'm like making mistakes and like setting myself up for worse turn cycles down the road and stuff like that. And it's like I'm getting better at the deck, but I'm still rolling. Like I'm making these mistakes and I am rolling people. I don't think
Steamroller.
Lexi can be fatigued anymore. Like in a
Oh,
competent pilot, like the power cards are there's too many power cards now.
Yeah.
Like a
you have
competent
much better arrows. Yeah, I didn't even think about
There's
that.
also
Like,
the quiver, right? The like it's like the remembrance quiver.
dude, I don't even think that's
oh,
good.
Oh
oh,
wow.
I don't think that's what he's taught. Yeah.
So
Do
I
you
is
run the
there
other?
just
Do
like a
you run
higher
wrestling
density of like
leaves?
excellent arrows or
Yeah. So
yeah.
Lexi's finally at a point where every single arrow can be a relevant on hit effect. And so now you can't fatigue struggles so much because you can't let a little bit leak here and there because everything is relevant. And it's like you got all these snatch arrows. You have like these like disease arrows that are really, really good. I have like I love blue sedation shot because as a blue, it's great because you don't need it in every matchup. And sedation is one that creates inertia on hit. But then like the blue is a 3 power, so with Voltaire you can pump up to 4 for a break point at the end of a combat chain. And then it's like, oh, Oldham, you like spent your D-Reacts blocking my stuff early. Now I'm gonna make you deal with a break point that turns off your crown of seeds. And if you go into your next turn cycle without an arsenal, like you're gonna leak way more damage.
Yeah, it's just
And
gonna
then
continue to
Yeah,
stack.
that's a really good point.
and then Codex Inertia just like forces that issue, right? Codex Inertia destroys decks that try to block because they're gonna like unless they keep something in their arsenal. But if their arsenal is open and you slam like into a blue heavy deck, if you slam like a random card off of the deck into their arsenal, like that's most likely not playable.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's going to be like hard to play. And then if they've already been blocking, they're probably not going to be able to play it. And then the inertia token is just so relevant versus Oldham. It is
Yeah.
so relevant. I was playing a game versus Natan, and it was like his first game versus the new Lexi. So like, granted, he made some mistakes and it wasn't playing around things like he should have, but like he was off Arsenal for like 4-5 turns in the
Whoa.
game, which just let me like maintain tempo. Like he started off like hit me with the big attacks and I had to block a bunch. But then we got to the mid game, I regained tempo, and then I pitched a 3 of a kind Rain Razors together, got to that point, forgot to activate my legendary quiver to get red arrows back in my deck. So when I 3 of a kind, I just drew blue arrows. So that was dumb of me. Still won because Lexi's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was really funny because you like went into the tank for like several minutes and you're just like
Yeah.
and then you're like, okay. And then you did the line and you won. And then like right in the middle of the combat chain, you're like, fuck, I have this quiver. This could have been so much easier.
Exactly.
Because you drew down to 1 card in your deck, I think, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
that
That's
was
just
why
like
the
that's
quiver
so
was
goofy.
relevant because like
Yeah.
I could have done it for 3 red arrows, and I had the turn prior. The turn prior, I had 6 cards left in my deck, including the cards I'd pitched that turn. So if I had shuffled 3 red arrows, like oh wait, no, it was before I had played the 3 of kind. That was the play. I had a couple cards left in my deck, so if I shuffle red arrows, and there's a really good chance I draw it, one of them. But like in hindsight, if I get really unlucky and I draw all 3 red arrows, and I do. So I think maybe you edge and do 2 red arrows, 1 blue arrow. I don't know.
Is it is it up to 3 or is it I guess it's up to 3, right? I don't have the card in front of me. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's still like it is still interesting to go from Lexi being like like LOL can't win against the Guardian because like the Guardian literally just blocks until all of Lexi's good arrows are gone, and then like and then they just start like hitting Lexi for like 8, 10, however much damage a turn, and there's nothing Lexi can really do because once they start blocking, it's like kind of over. But like it's shifted so much because there's so many on hits and so many relevant on hits too, like drill shot, all the inertia arrows, and then you still have all the great like ice arrows that make you pay or discard or make frostbites or whatever. So yeah, it just like it seems like there's a critical mass of like really good attacks, and I think it's still close, but I think that like I don't think it's a landslide by any means anymore, and I think the
I think
better.
it's Lexi favored. I think it's
I think
Lexi
it's
favored.
slightly Lexi favored.
I think with the Fuseless list so I'm playing Yuki's list from the Chicago Brawl. I think Isaac Crute also played the list. And it is just a 45 arrow main in the main deck, 45 arrows, and then your power cards, which are Rain Razors, Three of a Kind, Codex of Frailty, Codex of Inertia. And so then it's just like you just value trade and then wait until you get those power cards, and then you play those power cards, and then you spike damage, and then you value trade. And so like this deck because all the blues are 3-block arrows, the opponent sends a CNC at you and you laugh at it. It is not a problem. And I was playing our one of our other teammates, Eli's list, before I switched to Yuki's. And it's like CNC is a problem because like you had a bunch of 2-blocks, and like Eli doesn't block as a player. So like he prefers the ceiling of these cards to the floor. And I prefer a higher floor.
Yeah.
And the ceiling's damn near still there.
I will say that I've been trying out different builds of different heroes. Like I've been playing around. I played around a little bit with Oldhim, Viserai, Jeromai, Bravo, and like I've started like, which is whatever. But like I've actually started not playing, except for I think Bravo is the only place that it's like still really really good. I haven't been playing CNC against Rangers. I think that it's like against Azalea, you're not getting that much value. Like it's still good against Azalea, but it's like I don't think there's usually a situation where you're like really really got him there. And then it's like it's like you said, it's like against Lexi. Like I think Pummel CNC is still very good, but like it's not as devastating as it used to be. Right.
Yeah, and you're gonna probably be taking a lot of damage to play a Pummel, especially in Bravo where you get Tunic. Like you're gonna be taking damage to Pummel CNC someone, and that's like I don't know. I'm in love with this deck. I need to. I reached out to Yuki in the DMs on Twitter, talking through the deck and stuff, like because I'm trying to learn Lexi and she's really good at Lexi. So we've been talking about things and I'm getting better. But the
deck
your
pick for the season, you think? So is that your pick for the season? Are you gonna stick? You think?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be my pick for the season, 100%.
Cool.
I love this deck so much.
I'm still searching around trying to figure out kind of the answer to the Ranger problem.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I was gonna go next. Is like we know that Ranger's really good, and I think we talked a little bit too about like Azalea versus Lexi, and I think I'm in the same camp of like I like Lexi better, mostly because like I think Voltaire is cracked. I think now that there's this critical mass of arrows like we discussed, I think Voltaire is insane. Death Dealer is also still very good. Like it's still very very good, but I think that Voltaire just like opens up so many possibilities, and it also has it's an instant. Like there's just so many good things about it. You also get access to like shock charmers too, like random like little things like this.
I love that card. I think it's a skill intensive card that really rewards people understanding it. Like anytime I play Alexi, you can tell when someone's new and they're missing or messing up how they're using Voltaire and stuff, and it just becomes abundantly clear. And I think that card's awesome to watch, like go off and people really string together their like big turns. I think it's awesome.
Eli made a joke about that, about the like when we did a deck tech with Eli, who for those who don't know, he got top 4 at the calling in San Jose. And with Alexi deck tech's on the channel, go check it out. But he made the joke that like shock charmers is always going to be in the sideboard at least, but like he's like it's good against bad players, and he's like, of course that's not like 100% true, but like when people don't play around it properly, it definitely is like devastating.
Yeah, I think so. To answer your question, like to address the Ranger problem, Azuri is a really good answer to that. I just don't know how she does into the rest of the field. And as far as I know, she loses pretty freaking hard to Dromai. And Dromai will be popular. Whether or not it's going to convert, we'll find out. We've been talking about that on the side. Dromai is also really good into Rangers. I am biased, and I think Lexi wins every matchup right now because I'm riding high off a lot of wins. I don't win when I get tonal tied, and then I can't play my game anymore. Because once you tonal tie New Horizons, Lexi can only ever send 2 arrows a turn unless it's like very specific setups. And then once you only send 2 arrows a turn, you just get fatigued. There's no way.
Yeah.
They can try to take damage and like kill you, but they shouldn't. Like once you only send 2 arrows a turn, like you just lose the game.
Block, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I mean, I have been playing Azuri a bunch, and I am really loving my Ranger matchup and kind of just like fumbling through other matchups. I think the Icelander matchup on Azuri is still pretty decent. I think it's winnable. It's definitely not lopsided either way. Just a very skill intensive matchup. Um, I haven't really had too much experience into just like straight aggro, so like I think Lexi actually would probably give it more trouble than Azalea. Um, and I have, of course, talking about the Zuri build that me and another teammate are working on is it's a bit more defensive and actually does want to swing spiders, bites, and stuff. It's not the red line Danda list that everyone's really hyped on right now. I definitely want to give that list a try. It's just any list that runs like 5 blues is terrifying to me because ice still exists. Like I just the fact that ice heroes still exist and are part of the meta. I mean, I ran into someone last night and they were testing Arcane Icelander, and I was like, damn, this deck is punishing as shit if people really forget and aren't packing that AB. They were eating me alive, and I didn't really have like.
And just to clarify, mostly for myself, you like Arcane Icelander, like so, like low on, like no like wounded bulls and Fiendals necessarily.
Weather Vane, I'll call it Weather Vane Icelanders.
Yeah, but like they're more focused on like dealing damage to your face over like coming in with a 3 for 8 or something.
Yeah, so they're more focused on like true turn disruption, and I mean they piloted the deck well. I was on Katsu and I had like a 20 damage turn, because and they held on to their hand. I'm like, why the hell are they holding on to this hand? And it ended up being this ridiculous freezing point turn that pushed like 10 damage, gave me 6 frostbites. So then the next turn I took off. And then after I did that, it was just like, okay, here's another 4 frostbites. Here's another 3 frostbites, and whatever the specialization is. And it's like, oh, so the game plan is once you get that tempo from the ice, the frostbite disruption, you hold on to it, and you're just swinging moon on your turn and their turn, and eventually you've just shut them out of the game. And that build really only works if you have just no AB and you're allowing like Ice Vein to just like hit you for 5 and you're getting rid of a blue, things like that. So I actually thought that was interesting because I was like, damn, this deck might start rearing its head if people aren't respecting and are really focusing on these Ranger matchups as like, the tier meta and like Oldhim as well. I think that's where people are focusing is like, oh, it's either Rangers or Oldhim, and kind of I've heard people counting out Icelander, and I think it's just the idea of Bullander, and people are forgetting that the Wizard deck of Icelander still exists, and if people don't respect AB, it's a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, what are you like? Are you scared of any matchup? You mentioned Dromai as a potentially like they could high roll you, and then I think it's also like the better the Dromai player is, I think maybe they have a better shot of beating Ranger. What are you scared of any other matchups, Archer, as Lexi?
Bravo's really hard. Because they can just grab tempo and keep it. Azalea has been difficult, but I think I'm just learning how to play. Also, Red Arctic Incarceration is becoming. I'm understanding where it's good more and more. Really good into Azalea, really good into Azuri and Assassins. Like it's basically like it's just really good card. Because a lot of times, like if they like commit to blocking a little bit, you block with excess blues, and you don't because you don't want to play it inefficiently, and then you do 2 arrow them, and you end with an Arctic Incarceration, and then they just can't do anything. Yeah, so it Bravo Droma. I don't think Droma is that bad, with the caveat of if they tumulty you,
Yeah.
you probably just lose from there. Like
Yeah.
I don't like I played a game today where I got tumultied turn 3 or 4, and I conceded a couple turns later because I knew how the game was going to play out.
Mhm.
Um, and I played another game against Dromai. I was like, had all the tempo. They were full blocking. I was leaking damage, gone down to 11, no board state to speak of. It was like looking good. They took a bunch of, brought them down to 11 because they took a bunch of damage to play a Tomotai.
Right.
And then at that point, you're just hoping they hit one blue off of
Right.
it.
Right.
And that doesn't ever happen.
Yeah.
Um,
I think too that I think a lot of players were switching to like a very aggressive Dromai
Yeah.
towards the end of last season with like blazing head or I hate that people call it blazing hedgehog, blaze headlong. With blaze headlong, like ravenous ravel, the all the phantasm 1 for 5s, and like some of those cards are still very good, but like I think you have to approach the deck a lot differently now because you need those power cards like Tomotai and like even is it Dominia, the one that attacks, and if you reveal a red, you get a snag a card from their hand, or not, or it's either Dominia or Dracona Optima. I don't remember, but
I think optimize the damage one.
yeah,
And
yeah. And so like I think those big like setup dragons are still very good, and I think
yeah,
that people got into a habit of just like playing aggro Dromai and just like kind of going lower to the ground, more red line, and I don't think that will work anymore. And so if people can
mm,
figure out how to come up with like a more mid-range defensive game plan that can snag that tempo back with the Tomotai or find a spot where the ranger bricks and sees tempo from there, I think that it's going to be a lot easier moving forward. But
Ranger
I
doesn't brick
really like
anymore.
what's that?
Ranger doesn't
Ranger
brick
doesn't brick
anymore.
anymore.
well,
That Lexi
well,
deck's not bricking. It's got 45 arrows. What are you talking about?
God,
Oof.
fuck me then.
Yeah,
No,
But
no,
I
like
keep
seriously,
also
going.
it does not brick.
I do think the last thing I'll say too is that I do think you're spot on. I think Bravo's very very good right now. Like
Well,
I think so don't okay. So Bravo is not like unlike an insanely powerful hero. He hasn't necessarily gotten any like super new tools, but I think if the meta continues to be Icelander, Ranger, like Dromai and like other stuff, like I think he's a very good pick.
So
Whether or not
I
he's like
think
the
Bravo is
best deck in the
going to
game.
do well. I'm sorry, I'm just cutting you off.
No,
I
no,
think
that's fine.
Bravo is going to do well into these perceived top meta decks,
Hmm.
but Bravo is going to suffer from collateral damage from Azalea. People are going to play reinforced lines and immovables. And I mean,
just
you
slot
played
right
Bravo,
in.
and Red Immovable from
Hmm.
Arsenal like steals tempo in a game. It absolutely steals tempo. Same like Dory has the same problem. Like Dory's not a great pick right now
Mm.
because they're going to get a lot of collateral damage.
How do
Yeah,
we feel about our boy Viz? Yep.
I
Yep.
think Viz is fine.
Yeah.
Archer and I were just talking about this the other day, and it's like I like I think that he has to high roll the Rangers. Like I think he relies a little bit too much on those like crazy like we're playing a royal cash in Viz, and which is like it's still very good. But I think both versions of Viz kind of rely a little bit too much on high roll and like having those insane turns. And like if you're forced to block all the time, it's a lot harder to set up like a 5 card hand.
Well, and I was actually super curious. Like, I was thinking about maybe pulling back the idea of the Pummel Viz list that
Mm,
because
hmm.
it's the idea is that it tries to operate similar to Bravo, but on a better cost curve. You
Sure.
have less blues for the ice matchup, so that's like a bit concerning to me. But I mean, I don't know. It might be something I try. I'm really stuck on Azuri right now, and
Just do it.
I just don't have the $180 for surgicals right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's like
You just gotta
I
wait till
mean, I
dusk
could
till
sell.
dawn.
Yeah, but I could also sell off ninja stuff, like if
Well, just
because I
play
really
Phantom
don't.
Blast. He doesn't run surgicals.
Yeah, is
Like
that
in the
list?
meantime, right?
Yeah, no, I get that. Well, I was also thinking like if I actually had to, I feel like Pursuit of Knowledge is actually a okay replacement. It's the
Sure.
same card advantage on a card. It blocks for 2, but that's only the real major difference. and you can't shred it, which is a bit bummer. But you can shred before, right? Because like shred is activated on defense cards, not on a target card. So um, the idea is there. I mean, and honestly, any deck that I can try to shove Pursuit of Knowledge in, I'm always happy to do it. I think that card. I'm just waiting for the day that that card is a menace and people fucking hate it because it's just super fun to me. Um, yeah, I want to pummel. I want to pummel a Pursuit of Knowledge and have the greatest card advantage in this game that's ever been created, or like doing it on. That's why I like the Pummel of Viz ideas for the Cryptic Crossing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's so sweet.
That's just my dream. You discard 2 cards, I draw a card. That just feels fantastic,
Yeah.
especially into this Ranger meta. I just don't know how often or the efficiency he'll be pulling that line off.
And I mean, so that's why that's why I'm highlighting Bravo right now. Is like, yes, there will be collateral damage. People are going to be playing like unmovables and reinforce the lines and blah 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 blah. But I think that Bravo cares a lot less about his on hits with a lot of those matchups that are going to be targeting Azalea. If somebody spends 2 or 3 cards to block your on hit, you go, cool, Arsenal pass, and then they come in with an attack off of their 2 or 3 card hand, and you just like block, and then you either play the big attack you put in Arsenal, or you just like make a Surge and Anathos for 6, and that's still like a pretty good turn cycle. So like that's what kind of like I feel like that's what drew me away from this, is that I felt like some of the card quality of each individual card choice in the deck wasn't as high as like Bravo or Dromai.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm still pretty undecided. I had like a very like existential moment with like Natan and Archer like at the bar after the Armory last week. I was like, I just don't know what the fuck to do because like I'm not gonna play Ranger. Like I was like,
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat, but that's because I share a card pool. I have a whole different motivation as to why I'm not playing Ranger.
You got to
respect for my
play
partner.
Lexi. You got to play Lexi, the different legendaries.
No, I mean that's fair. And like I don't know. I think I just I try to be the Ryu to Dylan's Ken. I try to like
Okay.
I try to be, if he's playing the thing, I want to play the deck that beats him, and I think it goes back and forth with that. It's really fun.
One deck that one of our locals has started playing that I think is really good right now is do you know who we're going to talk about?
Yeah, I do, and it's hype.
I feel like I know who you're going to talk about, and
yeah.
I just want to put in this disclaimer that I'm not sure I'm going to agree with anything you're about to say, but go on.
You disagree, and it's fine. Yeah. It's we'll see when you top something. That's true. Let's see how this RTN season goes. No, we're all going to top 4. So our a local named Steven, he plays a lot of Runeblade, but I don't remember what the name of the archetype is, like, because I didn't play Magic, but he's like the one who wants to play like off meta stuff, and he wants to do weird stuff, and he just wants to do the cool thing. He doesn't really care about winning.
In Magic it's called a Johnny.
A Johnny,
yeah. A Timmy is somebody who like plays jank cards that they bring from home. A Johnny is somebody who's like, I just want to make cool combos work, and a Spike is somebody who's very competitive.
Yeah. So he played a lot of he plays like Rainbow Drawn to the Dark Dimension in his Viserai list because he's just like draw the cards, let's high roll. And then he played a lot of OTK Viserai where he's playing like Rainbow reduced to Rune Chant because the man is crazy and loves playing Rainbow of cards, and I beg him to stop playing the yellows and blues of these cards. Anyway, so he plays this overpowered class, right? But he plays like a different version of it. So he went to his little dungeon thought fortress and he came out of the Outsiders release and he was like, I'm going to play Give and Take in Briar. I've never really played Briar, but I'm going to play Give and Take because no one's going to block it because it's scary. and I'm going to get my embodiment of Earth whenever I play Give and Take. And then I'm just going to play other big attacks. And then, there's this card, Peace of Mind. That goes really well with Crown of Seeds. Briar can play Crown of Seeds. So he's without knowing it, he built the Bully Briar that Nathan Crawford played in the Goliath Gauntlet. Without knowing it, he built that deck. And I love
his Peace of Mind is a fucking gas card for that deck.
Yeah.
It is really good. It is really good.
And Burdens of the Past.
Yeah, and he's playing Burdens of the Past. It's a blue block 3 and that you can play for 0. Yeah, so the deck is really good. I'm begging him to try to improve it, but he's kind of stubborn, so I don't think he will. But
he's actually like a really good, like if he put in like I don't get the sense that he goes to more than, like, I think he just goes to like the weekly armory. Like I don't think he really plays on like Talishar or like grinds in that way, but like I think he goes into the tank with deck building. Oh, really? Well, I mean, either way, like he I think he's actually like a pretty good deck builder. And I think if he allowed himself to like bring in that like outside information and like use those ideas, but like I also like I respect like his approach to deck building.
Yeah. He was playing Absorbent Aether Icelander in Blitz before Uprising came out, and he was just like, Absorbent Aether, blue card in Arsenal for 9 damage, something crazy like that. Like he's always on Kraken's Aether Vein. Like the dude's awesome and crazy. But so Peace of Mind, Crown of Seeds, Bully Briar is a legit deck. It is 15 damage turn cycle the deck because you are ideally blocking for 8 with Embodiment of Earth, right? With your blue block 3s. And then you're attacking for 7. So it's 15 damage the turn cycle. And then you have Crown of Seeds mixed in with that, with Peace of Mind. And those just go together. And he's playing Blue Brothers in Arms. And so he's like,
so he gets even the more he gets.
He's playing a Oasis Sprite. He might be playing like too much of all these like things, but like there's a deck there, and it got better with this set.
Yeah,
and I think it's legit because it can like it can beat Rangers. It can block really, really well.
The only thing is
movables. And to beat Azalea, like
how is the deck better than just playing Oldhim?
Well, it's probably not, shield. But like the idea is
that's I'm genuinely asking. But doesn't Ice React have a similar amount of value?
Oh sure, I'm not.
No.
I do. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Archer, but like I think Archer's bringing it up as an idea to show that there's more like room to like brew in this meta.
I am not saying that to like shit on the idea. I'm asking in earnestness because I want to see the validity of the deck, and I think Embodiment of Earth is the idea there because you're going to be able to have like 2 block 4s, and I think that there's idea there. But every time that I when I'm building that deck, when I go to Bully Briar, every time I'm just like, okay, and then because you have the anti-fatigue package, but I from what I've seen, just in Talishar testing and meta and big events, I don't think Fatigue Oldhim is really the Oldhim anymore. I don't see him around. It was kind of a flash in the pan. It's just like Kano spiking events. Like if you forget that deck exists, it can just pop up and win events again. People have switched back to a more traditional Oldhim build. I mean, I fought against an Anothos Oldhim last night. That was devastating. It was just like on hit after on hit. Oh, I finally take an off turn, swing in for hammer, wait for my next value turn, and then just keep hitting you over the head with, Guardian big attacks. And so in my head, I'm like, it just sucks that basically Bully Briar doesn't have that same package of on hits that are get the value on the offensive turns.
No, I mean your only value you're getting on your on hits is the Embodiment of Earth, which is like really good still because they're either blocking your attack and then not sending much at you, or they're not blocking and then you're like, it's not really a fatigue deck.
Right.
It's like a grindy tempo deck, kind of.
Yeah, it's a value deck, and it's just trying to get you to the point where you have to block it, and then it's just outvaluing you because when certain decks have to block, they're not getting the full value out of their cards. And in the meantime, it's just getting consistent value every turn. Probably loses Dromai. I don't know.
It's got a lot of poppers, at least.
Everything's losing to
That doesn't
Dromai.
matter.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, but I think in practice, I think Dromai beats or has a less landslidey like what am I trying to say?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Dromai in theory kicks a lot of stuff's ass, but in practice doesn't actually function that way. I don't know.
I mean, and that's the question is, why do we think that deck's not converting? I mean, we've only had 3 kind of bigger events since the new set, and I don't think Dromai has been in the top of any of them, while being highly represented at each event.
I think I heard that Dromai won.
It did win an AG.
Archer, are you about to? What event did it win? An AG? What is this?
That's the arcane game event.
Oh yeah.
But it was not a represented. It was not a highly represented deck in that field. It was a pretty small field. But I think Dromai was only 3 or 5. No, like 3 players or something like that. But it won.
Okay.
It was funny. It won. That was the only thing that I've seen though. It hasn't converted. It even day 2 at the Chicago Brawl.
Yeah, nobody converted to day 2 from the Chicago Brawl.
Yeah. Was there a day 2 of Chicago Brawl?
Or nobody converted to top 8. Sorry. So I think it was 7 rounds, and the Dromai was the most represented deck, but none of the pilots made it to top 8.
There was a calling, I think, where there was a shit ton of Dromais, and none of them made day 2. I don't remember what that was, but yeah, I don't know.
Is it because it has such weak matchups? For every strong matchup it has, I imagine it has for every good matchup it has, there's an aggro deck in the field that just is going to murder Dromai.
I mean, I don't know. I think I'll stick to my theory of people are just copy pasting from the last format and doing the red line oh, I'm gonna 0 for 4, get some Phoenix Flames, and then I'll make an Asvalai and attack you. And really, that's the Ranger's okay, fine. Here's a dominated 16 on hit arrow, and Dromai's oh yeah, this fucking sucks, right? So I think that Dromai does have legs, but not in the popular form that everybody's seen it in the last few weeks. And even I don't even think that was as good as people were saying, because obviously we didn't see a lot of results with it. So, but yeah, I want to. This is a great discussion. We are running kind of long though, so final thoughts from both of you guys.
And mid-range Dromai, the one that you're referring to, you think is better. That one is fundamentally much more difficult to play.
Yes.
Second cycle is very important in that deck. That deck wants to set up second cycle dragon combos in almost every matchup.
It wants to pitch hand, yeah.
It wants to have the exact hands set up exactly. It loses harder to the aggro decks. So it's a harder deck to play. I think Toma Findel was where a lot of people landed to try to leverage the aggro matchups. But, that deck might be better into the matchups you want to target, but that deck is really hard to play. I think mid-range Dromai requires a lot of experience.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of Savage Lands news, we mentioned him earlier. He has a really good video talking about Dromai. Where he talks about some of those elements that you just mentioned, pitch stack into second cycle, playing against your matchups, all that stuff. Jacob, anything else to what do you want to wrap up on? What are the final words you want to impart on these dozens of listeners?
Yeah, no. So I know as a team that we're really focused on RTN season, and that's where my head's at. I would say as far as where I'm at in relation to what I expect RTN meta is and what I want to play, I'm so still in the exploratory stage, and I'm totally chill with that. I over these last couple of days, I just choose a deck a day that I'm interested in, and I just grind it out and get the feeling of whatever I feel like it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I look at my win loss. If I played 7, 8 matches, I just look at it and go, okay, did I win mostly or lose mostly on this deck? And then how did I feel into the major decks of the meta so far? So ice decks and ranger decks. That's just where my head's at. That's what I'm testing into.
Yeah.
And so I really don't know what I'm playing. I think I'm leaning towards Azuri. I think that deck has the most legs as far as an aggro disruption deck. That's not a ranger, and it's because it gets to play the codexes. So that's where my head's at. I would love to find a dark horse, obviously, but yeah,
I think
just
Azuri is
exploring
that dark.
Yeah,
Or
cool.
Kano.
Kano, yeah, Kano's the dark horse.
Learn Kano.
And I know that's your boy, Archer. I'm surprised that you aren't excited to kind of pull him out right now.
I got trounced at a pro quest that I brought to it. I lost a bunch of like mediocre aggro players, and I'm like, this feels horrible. And that's just Kano's like down. Like that's the downside of Kano's, that you can just lose to like mediocre aggro players.
You know what I'm saying? We're looking at a meta that might be much less aggro.
Yeah.
At least the good players are going to not be on aggro decks,
my closing thought is that I'm actually really proud of myself because I feel like I convinced Archer to play Kano in that pro quest, and then he just like, he 2/2 dropped or whatever. And then my other proudest moment this pro quest season was I played Rhinar at the only pro quest I was able to go to, faced Natan round 1, and proceeded to just like get smashed the rest of the day. So I went like 2 and 4.
Yeah.
And then Natan finished in exactly 9th place and gave me a ride home. So really, I feel like I'm just an influencer, and
yeah, you're just so I want to touch on so I brought Icelander and Kano on the day to that pro quest. And I didn't know what I was playing. Like I was playing Icelander on the side. Like I don't think I'd brought it to any locals. Like no one really knew that I was good on the deck. And I was telling Tam, I was like, what do I play? And he's like, just play Kano. Just play Kano. I was like, I'll play Kano. And then I had like probably one of the most miserable competitive experiences I've had playing this game. Got really frustrated and left in the middle of the tournament, which is like not really me, but I was really bummed out. And then I went to another pro quest, and I was like, all right, Amulet of Ice and Hypothermia just got banned. I'm going to play Icelander while she's still busted. And I went undefeated until top 4 in that tournament. So you're wrong.
Yeah, man, that was really, I don't know. Well, like I was like, you were like, I don't know what deck to play. I was like, look, man, like when you're talking about Kano, you just get this big smile on your face. And also at the time, your win rate on Talishar was like fucking crazy. I don't know. You had like 70 something % over like 150 games, which is nuts. That being said, yeah, I made the wrong call. I'll say it.
I have one last thing to say before we wrap it up. I wanted to make this earlier when I was gushing over Lexi. I was talking to player in our scene, Sean. He runs Commoner Crawls out here. He's a really awesome dude. He was saying that his dark pick for the Pro Tour is Lexi. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I can see where you're coming with that. And after I've been playing the deck, that is my call. I think Lexi, not even a dark horse. Like I think by the time the Pro Tour comes around, I think Lexi's going to be the ranger. Azalea is going to kind of fade off because, like I said, it's a little easier to play, a little easier to target. Lexi has a lot more flexibility in its matchups because of Voltaire allows you to play around control better. I think Lexi's going to win the Pro Tour.
I think you are correct. And I think there's no oh come on. There's no major like events between now and then, right? Like it's the Pro Tour is the next like big event. Or there might be some battle hardens, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't foresee anything getting banned or changed. And I think that assuming that is the case, I agree. I think that if I were a betting man, it would be Lexi, and my dark horse pick is Bravo, because I think Bravo has enough game into like Kale McCreath could just fucking roll up to a tournament and like win, go undefeated on Bravo with the right matchup. So
yeah, but he's Kale.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
All right, that dude pitch backs without thinking about it.
Yeah, that dude's actually insane on Bravo. And it's like almost a meme at this point, where he's like, oh, I can only play Bravo, but he's like really fucking good at it. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, breaking the fourth wall. Thank all of you for joining. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you're not a shitty person, you'll just hit the like button. Or if you are a shitty person, you'll hit the thumbs down and tell us why you're a shitty person in the comments below. That also helps the algorithm. So don't be shitty either way. And thanks for listening. That's Jacob and Archer, and I'm Tim, and we'll see you all later.
See ya.
Say bye, Jacob. What? I didn't. Oh, your mic didn't pick. Okay, whatever. Jacob said bye too.
Oh, I said peace. I said.
Oh
peace.
no, it didn't pick up on the mic. Yeah, I just saw your mouth like. It's like. Okay, well, goodbye for real, everybody. We'll see you next time.